And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Tonight's weather showing weakening low pressure here over the northern Bering Sea, and westerly flow carrying impulses, surges of snow showers westward here. Another one moving across the Pribilofs, approaching the southwest coast. This one bringing more snow shower activity from Norton Sound and the lower Yukon Valley into the northern Kuskokwim Valley and Cook Inlet tonight as snow showers scatter out. So much improved conditions there for the Copper River Basin. Some leftover light snow up over the northern interior south of the Brooks Range. Clearing and a little colder there for the Arctic coast, but still windy for the western Arctic coast. And wind and rain diminish over the Panhandle. This system here tracks northeastward and brings more rain and snow into Kodiak Island during the day tomorrow, but not much of an increase in the winds. And that links up with a trough here connected with this weakening low now over St. Lawrence Island for snow showers over the western part of the state into Bristol Bay. Still some light snow up here over the Yukon Flats area down to about the White Mountains, but not too bad over the southeast interior. And a few showers for the Panhandle with that trough. And then on the next day, this system tracks up to just south of the eastern North Gulf Coast. So more rain and snow coming into the Panhandle, but not much in the way of any increase in the winds of any significance there. And colder air coming down, actually coming eastward here. So temperatures in a cooling trend over much of the interior all the way down to Kodiak Island with some snow showers. More snow showers come across south central Alaska, Kuskokwim Valley, extending up into the northwest interior there. Clear and colder for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Pretty calm out here over the Bering Sea. Next system way off to the southwest there. Coastal water forecast for the south coast of the Panhandle. Westerly winds 20 knots. West 20 to 25 knots for the central coast. And for the north coast, north winds at 15. South winds 15 for Lynn Canal. Gale warnings for the Stevens Passage area. South winds 35 knots. South at 20 for Clarence Strait. And then for the day on Saturday, west-southwesterly winds 25 to 30 knots for the south coast and central coast south at about 25 knots. And then east winds 20 to 25 knots with some higher gusts for the north coast. Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, Glacier Bay, northern and central inside waters. Small craft advisory, southeast winds 25 knots with higher gusts, and Clarence Strait, south winds 25 knots. For the North Gulf Coast tomorrow, south to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, southeast at 15 for Prince William Sound. Cook Inlet, south to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, southwest 20 knots, Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands. And then for Saturday, big increase in the winds here. Storm warnings out for the Barren Islands. West winds 50 knots, west 45 for Kamishak Bay and Cook Inlet. West winds 20 to 30 knots, strongest here south of the Forelands, and north 25 for Prince William Sound. Gale warnings for the North Gulf Coast. North to northwest winds 35 to 40 knots. And then for Friday, Kodiak Island, southwest winds 20 knots. Bristol Bay, south at 15. Alaska Peninsula here, not too bad. West-southwest winds 15 to 20 knots. And for Saturday, Alaska Peninsula, west winds 20 to 25 knots. Westerlies at 20 knots for Bristol Bay with those seas at about 7 feet. And Kodiak Island, west winds 30 to 40 knots with 8-foot seas. Eastern Aleutians, west-southwest winds tomorrow, 20 to 25 knots. West-southwest 25 knots for Adak and Atka. And then for the western Aleutians, west winds 25 knots. And for Saturday, look for southeast winds 25 to 35 knots as a system down to the southwest begins to approach the area there. Same thing for Adak and Atka, but these increase in the winds will be later in the day than out west, possibly getting as high as 35 knots from the southeast. And for Unalaska Island, west winds 25 knots. Southwest coast here, well, for the Yukon Delta coast, southwest winds at 15 knots. South 15 for Norton Sound, south 20 for St. Lawrence Island and the Kuskokwim Delta coast. Windiest area will be the Pribilofs, southwest 30 knots, seas 17 feet. Otherwise, northwest at 15 for St. Matthew Island. And then for Saturday, northwest winds 25 knots with 12-foot seas for St. Paul and St. George. Northwest 15 for St. Matthew Island. West 15 knots for St. Lawrence Island. West at 10 for the Yukon Delta coast. South of Nunivak Island, west winds at 15 knots. And moving up to the north there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, east-northeasterlies at 20 knots. Northeast 25 for the central Arctic coast, and east-northeast 30 knots for the western coast. Chukchi Sea here, east-northeast 15 to 25 knots. Taking a look at Saturday's forecast for the Chukchi Sea, northeast to northwest winds 10 to 15 knots. And east-northeast winds 30 knots there for the western Arctic coast, so staying pretty windy in that area through at least the first day of the weekend. East-northeast winds 15 knots for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast.